Welcome to Inappropriate, Earl. 272 episodes in.
That's awesome. 272?
I thought of quitting several times.
Don't do it. You're too far down the road. You got to see it through.
It's the only thing from stopping me. There's no plan B in the podcast world for me. I've only gone mobile one other time.
Really?
And that's for another man named Rob, the great Deuce Bigelow.
Oh, Rob Schneider. Very nice.
Robin Williams had passed, and they were friends, and he said, bring your gear. And I'm like, Rob, I don't know how to do this mobile. I won't say what he said exactly, but he's like, bring your effing gear. And my second mobile podcast is with Rob Riggle.
That's awesome. I love it. I actually knew Robin Williams, too. I performed with him at the Upright Citizen Brigade one night. We did improv together, and then we did some USO stuff together. And yeah, I was very sad when he passed because he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he did his material all the time. It was other people's material.
But didn't he got to a point though where, yeah, I knew that was probably a problem for him, but he would pay for everything he took, right?
At the end, he did.
Okay.
I think he got enough
flack. Yeah.
Pardon my language.
Yeah, but he got a lot of flack. But at some point he made the turn where he was paying for everything he took.
I'll give him this. He did what Carlos Mencia never did, which was pay people for their work.
Right.
Carlos just took.
Wow.
And I saw it firsthand.
Did you really?
He would sit in the back of the Comedy Store during the open mic. And everyone was like, what's Carlos Mencia doing here at Potluck, which is the Comedy Store's open mic?
Uh-huh.
And you could tell he was just listening to everyone. And then the next week, you'd hear a bit that an open micer did, told much funnier by Carlos, because he is a great performer.
Uh-huh.
And you'd be like, oh, that's what he was doing there last week.
Wow. That's just overt.
Well, it wasn't until Joe Rogan in the very famous...
I thought didn't Maron call him out a little bit?
Rogan was the first one to literally storm the stage while Carlos, whose real name is Ned, he's Honduran. He's not even Mexican. Basically, he said, you're stealing jokes from my friends. You have to stop. And it got real awkward, and there's a very famous YouTube clip.
Oh, I think I do remember that. I do.
Brian Redband, who produces Joe's podcast, just by fate had a camera with him, and someone said, hey, you should tape this. And it's all caught on tape, and it's really fascinating.
Did that go down to the Comedy Store? Where did that go?
That went down at the Comedy Store in the original room.
Wow.
And it got Joe pretty much banned from the Comedy Store because they had to take one of their sides. And Mitzi and the store decided to take
listen, that's a tricky one because I don't think you should storm anybody's stage.
Well, Joe is, I guess you'd call him a comics.
But I don't think he's wrong. I just don't know, as far as the Comedy Store having to make their decision.
It was tough because they're both big comics.
Sure.
Fear Factor was pretty big at the time, and The Mind of Mencia was on Comedy Central, was big. So it's like, wow, we're going to burn a bridge no matter what we do.
Yeah.
And as you know, joke stealing in the comedy world is
taboo.
It's literally the equivalent of being labeled a pedophile.
Yeah.
It's the one thing comics won't stand.
It is. It's bad form. It's about as bad as it gets in the comedy world.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Well, how I avoided that when I was doing stand-up, I just made everything about my stories.
Right.
You can't steal your own stories.
Yeah, you have a unique...
You know what I mean? And that's the safest way to do it.
You're one of the few comics who've actually served. And it's the only time I will bring up your service.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Very nice.
I mean, 23 years.
Yeah.
I'd be the worst soldier on the planet. I would literally be pushing people in front of me. Hey, they're over there.
No, you wouldn't. You'd actually be pretty good at it, other than the fact that you can't stand authority.
Well, I stand up for myself, which I don't know if that would fly in the Army or Navy or Marines. And I'm in good gym shape, but I can only imagine the shape that you had to be in.
Oh, it was a long time ago. Now my shape is round.
You're in great shape. And we're the same age. You're younger than me.
Yeah.
In full disclosure. I'm 50, still trying to get on New Faces at Montreal.
That's awesome.
Well, it might be a little late in the game.
And you clearly work out.
Well, I used to be a lot bigger.
Really? Like bigger how? Bigger buff
muscular.
or bigger? Oh, muscular.
Never did steroids, but I was...
you were jacked. Go ahead and say it. You were jacked.
I had horrible form. Like I could bench press 315, but I would get scoliosis doing it. Like I had horrific form.
Yeah, but 315, that's like NFL stuff.
Well, in the NFL combine, the big bench press is how many times you could do 225.
Yeah.
And those guys' forms are even the guy who had one arm missing had perfect, or one, he had the... yeah,
he's missing the hand.
He had, I think set the record 39 times.
Oh, 39 reps at 225 is insane.
But their form is just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you're a tall guy too, and tall guys we have to extend so much further than the short, stocky guys.
Yeah.
Like when we do pull-ups, it's a long pull.
Like you have long arms.
The short guys, they jump up on the bar to do a pull-up, and they just ding, 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 like a rabbit, just jacking them out. Ding, 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 and we have the long pulls.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not muscular because it's my limbs are too long. That's why Manute Bol was never, the 7'7".
Yeah, 170 pounds.
Yeah, I think he was 170, 7'7".
Yeah,
and but he was a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah, he couldn't miss. He was shooting down on the thing.
See, this is how great Rob is. We're talking about Manute Bol 4 minutes into the podcast. It's going to get the numbers up. Talk about it.
Nobody knows what we're talking about.
But we're the same age, so like, I know you're a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And you got to, back when we watched wrestling as kids, there was no internet.
No, and it was scary because Rowdy Roddy Piper, when he would grab a microphone from somebody or start a fight on set, it was terrifying because he was crazy.
Oh, I co-hosted his podcast with him.
Did you really?
Well, and it gets a little bit to a sad area.
Oh.
I think the effects of 40 years of taking chair shots might have been getting...
all those guys. That movie, remember the one Mickey Rourke played? The Wrestler. I think that's very apropos to their world. Well,
I sat next to Roddy, and this is before I knew him, at the screening in Beverly Hills, that one they do all the screenings at, and he was crying.
I'm sure he was, because that hits so close to home for all those guys. It has to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them die before 50. My favorite, Rick Rude, who was he was just the best bad guy.
Iron Sheik.
Such
a classic bad guy and funny.
Oh, he's funny. He's crazy.
Yeah, certifiable. They all are. They all got a screw loose a little bit.
Well, we did the Iron Sheik's roast at the Comedy Store, and his manager was like, "Hey, I know you're a big wrestling fan. If you dress up as the Ultimate Warrior, the Sheik will think it's him." And I'm like, "You're crazy. He's not that stupid." Yeah. So I dressed up as the Warrior, face paint, the arm tassels, the Speedos. And I walked backstage, and the Iron Sheik, who was in frail health, he went up to fight me. Like, he thought I was the Ultimate Warrior. And I did not look like the Ultimate Warrior.
You looked enough to fool the Sheik.
I looked like the Ultimate Warrior at maybe 12 years old. Like,
oh my gosh.
But back when we were kids, like, now you could look up whoever a popular wrestler is, and you get their Wikipedia page, and it's like Dolph Ziggler. His real name is not Dolph Ziggler.
Right.
It is what it is, and he's from here. Like
Ric Flair.
Yeah.
All these guys.
He's from Charlotte.
Yeah.
I thought Kamala, the Ugandan giant, was from Uganda.
Right. Well, because it's their persona, and they sell it so well.
But and now
this is all before internet. This was all before the information age. So you took what you were fed.
Yeah, I mean,
because you had no choice.
Abdullah the Butcher was from the Sudan.
Yeah,
that's where he was being portrayed as, and he's from Atlanta.
Yeah, and there was some Russian too, wasn't there?
Kolov.
Yeah,
Nikita Koloff.
Yeah, and so you just believed that he was some sort of defector.
Yeah. But that's what made it so great was, you really thought they hated each other. I mean, the Iron Sheik was actually from Iran.
Yeah.
He was the bodyguard to the Shah of Iran.
Oh my gosh.
So, nowadays these guys are just bodybuilders or, they're not, they're just models almost doing, ballet.
Yeah. Doing acrobatics.
Do you remember the wrestlers you saw at?
Yeah, because we had local wrestlers. So like Bulldog Bob Brown, Dusty Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. He had a lisp.
Yeah.
It was great.
My brother. He would do that.
And he was very flamboyant. He was very flashy, but he had that great accent. Those are the guys that were on whatever circuit they were on. Those are the guys that came through Kansas City a lot.
Right.
Now, then it turned into a whole nother thing with when Hulk and Rowdy and some of these guys came on the scene, it got elevated, and when Mean Gene would interview you, those guys were all the guys that were in the Cyndi Lauper video.
Sure. Lou
Albano, all those guys, those were it was during that time. So what would that have been? 83, 84? I think that's when wrestling kind of hit its peak.
I think Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden. And I think this is why I haven't made it in comedy. I know all this stuff. In the late 82. And then Hulkamania came fruition in 84.
And 83 was when Rocky 3, or 82 was when Rocky 3 came out, and Hulk played Thunderlips, the ultimate male.
All right.
And that got him, the nationwide global exposure where people were like, who is this guy who's 7 foot, that buff? And he looked like this Nordic god, with the blonde hair, and he was at his absolute most buff. And he was fascinating. Just like Mr. T was fascinating,
Sure.
Everybody wanted to know more about this person with the mohawk and the golds and all that. Same thing with Thunderlips. You wanted to know more about him, and so that early 80s to me was the beginning of the golden age.
Oh, sure.
Of wrestling.
Because I thought they were, you come from a UCB background, and so you're an actor. You're an actual actor. I thought the wrestlers back then were better actors than the ones today. Like,
yes.
I told Roddy Piper, I used to hate you.
Yeah. I feared him.
He got scared, or he got sad because he said, why did you hate me? I'm like, you were so evil
and mean
that I believed it when you hit Superfly Snuka the coconut, which might have been a bit on the racial. They did some things that
overtone there.
You look at how African American wrestlers were portrayed in the 80s. The Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
Who came to the ring and all fours with the dog collar. Kamala was a savage who couldn't speak English. Slick the Pimp.
Well, they played into stereotypes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They played into them. But I do agree with you. I think they committed to their characters. And I was scared of Rowdy. He scared me. Like, I was like, that guy's he's not right. And and he's mean and he's evil and he's bad. He's a bad guy. Like, and he was so unpredictable. Like, I was always afraid for Mean Gene. I thought he was going to hurt the reporters. I thought they were going to hurt Mean Gene. That's how good they were. And that's how much I bought into it, because they committed so hard to their characters.
Well, Mean Gene was like the perfect straight man.
He's perfect.
Like, he would set these guys up and just not say a word.
Yeah.
And like Jesse the Body Ventura, he would always set up with these lines about, his celebrity friends at Plato's Retreat, which was like a sex club in New York. And
well, that's why I think Mean Gene was so good, because he would have been outstanding in improv.
Right.
Because he fed people's games. Like, whatever your game was, he would feed it. So if you're the Iron Sheik and you hate America or whatever, he would say something like, Iron Sheik, are you ready to wrestle on the 4th of July? I hear you scheduled a date to wrestle on the 4th of July in Milwaukee. Again, teeing him up so he could say something terrible about America,
Right.
And that's good straight man. That's just good improv. That's how you feed the game. And he was a master at it.
I got kicked out of the Groundlings level 1, so wasn't really.
Now, how'd you get kicked out? Was it attitude? Did you get in a fight with the instructor?
Well, the instructor was very bitter, and I get it. Like, we're all not where we want to be.
Sure.
Maybe except for you.
No, it never ends, by the way. There's no finish line.
Right.
There's no
That's
finish
how
line.
I think of it.
Yeah, there's no finish line. When I got fired from Saturday Night Live, I realized, well, that's over. Now I got to find another gig. Like, there's no finish line. You're always grinding. You're always searching. Even the A-list people, well, maybe not Clooney, but people that you wouldn't think or have it, or you think that have it made, they're out there competing with other people. They're competing with other A-listers to try and get that great script, or to try and get that great opportunity,
Sure.
or work with that great director. So it never ends. The grind never ends.
Oh no, I love it.
Yeah.
After 20 years, I'm pretty dead inside. So,
just a shell. Am I looking at a shell?
Oh yeah, I started 20 years ago thinking, I booked my first two. This is about you, but it's neat for me to be in a room with someone who's, you've achieved a lot in this business,
hopefully,
and more to come. But I booked my first two national commercials, and I thought, this business is easy. Like I'm literally gonna, I'll audition a few times, I'll get a few, not get a few, and then went 15 years with nothing. I mean, thank you, Rob Schneider, for picking me up off my boots, because I know we were talking about opening comics and headliners, and Rob was always very good to me.
Yeah.
And it showed me a good side of the business.
Absolutely.
Unlike the instructor from the Groundlings who showed me oh, wow, this guy's bitter. I'm not casting your movies that you're not getting. Like, don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
Which I loved improv. Like, I gained a lot from it. I'm just sorry my experience was.
Well, good. I think it's good. I think if you're going to be a comedian, you got to have all the spokes on the wheel, meaning, you need to be able to do stand-up. You need to be able to do improv. You need to be able to do comedic acting, character work, and you need to be able to write. And I think those are the spokes on the comedy wheel. And some you're better at, but you need to be able to do them all.
Oh, for sure. Now, my writing process is very bizarre. I have to have the TV on. I listen to, all the political channels that's comedy to me. Just how their hatred of each other. It's like a roast battle between Fox News and CNN, and MSNBC's in there too. But I have iTunes on with 80s metal blasting away all at the same time. What is your writing process?
My writing process is,
be it for films or your stand-up.
It honestly, for stand-up, it's sometimes it's premise based, and most of the time though it's personal stories that I heighten, not necessarily lie or fabricate, but heighten. It's a little exaggeration here and there for comedic purposes, but that, and also sometimes it comes in the weirdest. Muse comes in the weirdest places, whether it's a conversation or a bit, some part of a TV show or a movie. Someone says an interesting line that makes me think about it, kind of spirals off of that.
Right.
And then that'll be the genesis for an idea. And then I'll go from there. So generally that's how it works.
So I would imagine
in improv, you just never have a plan. You just get up there and it's a lot of reacting, but at the same time, you have to feed. You can't just, you have to feed the beast. If you're in the scene, you gotta contribute.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So,
but your background is unlike any. I mean, I know there's been comics who've served in the military, but I would imagine 23 years in the military, you ran across some characters.
Yeah. Yes, a lot. And it's funny because I ran across a lot of authority figures.
Right.
And most of the characters I play are authority figures, whether it's a dad, a coach, a cop, a lot of cops, or a military man, but it's usually some authority figure. And most of the authority figures I knew great ones. I knew good leaders and good ones, but I also knew a lot of douchebags and a lot of guys that were blowhards and, had big egos and thought they were King Turd of Shit Mountain or whatever. And so it's an amalgam. A lot of the characters I play are these in charge douchebags or idiots. And so I draw on my personal experience, whether it's from the military or an old high school football coach or some guy I know from improv or some, you meet them all through your life. I remember I used to get embarrassed when I would meet awkward people, and I would look away, or I would put my head down, or I would evade the conversation, or I would try to get away because I didn't like being uncomfortable, because they made me uncomfortable.
Right.
And then I got to a point where I stopped doing that and started embracing the uncomfortable conversations or the awkward person or the person who's being a big, loud jerk, someone who stands up, like the dad in the stands that's, causing a scene, that I used to get embarrassed for them. So I would just leave or get away from it or try to change or start a conversation with someone so I didn't have to be in that awkward uncomfortableness. And I stopped doing that and I started observing them and soaking it up like a biscuit on gravy, just soak it up because I wanted to remember everything and all their mannerisms, the things they said, the intensity with which they said it, because to me, it was a character study. And then I would take that and use it at auditions or when, I got a character. And so it actually helped a lot, but it was hard for me to overcome that.
Like, did you ever come across someone like a Sergeant Carter from Gomer Pyle, like someone like that?
Oh yeah. I remember. Yeah, I would. Oh, you'd always come across guys that were hard asses, that got off on being in the military. It was all they had, and so they got off on it, and they got off on their authority. I remember I got chewed out. I was a lieutenant, and we were on some training exercise down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and this Army captain just read me the riot act about something that I had no control over. It wasn't my problem. He was just pissed off and things weren't going on schedule or whatever. And I just happened to be there and I was junior in rank to him. So he thought he would give me a ration of shit. And I remember it was the first time I had been dressed down rather aggressively. Right. And I realized what a douchebag he was. So it didn't bother me. Like I didn't get nervous at all. I wasn't sweating it. I wasn't like, oh God, I'm in trouble. I got to because normally I would probably take it personally or take it to heart. But I remember just kind of standing there and observing him and thinking, wow, this guy's just out of control because he had no right to be that mad and no right to give me that ration of shit. But I remember, and I just distinctly remember we were standing outside of a bus. I remember and we were on a dirt road and he was just letting me have it. And I just didn't bat an eye and my pulse didn't increase. And I remember thinking, what a fucking joke this guy is. And when he was done, he realized what a douchebag he was and he calmed down and it was like, oh, listen, I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I was like, oh, it's fine. I was like, whatever. You're an idiot. But I soaked it up.
Now, has that helped you deal with the, let's just say, certain volatile personalities in Hollywood?
Yeah. It's weird. I learned. You get advice from all kinds of people you work with and stuff, and I just never allowed anybody else's problems or baggage or attitude to affect what I do, which is not easy. It's so much easier said than done. But if someone's being an ass or someone's having a fit or someone is causing all kinds of trouble on set, it can be distracting and it can throw you off your game. It can throw you off of what you're trying to accomplish. But all you can do then is just leave it to the producers and the director to handle that. And you just stay within your own shell and work on you and work on what you're responsible for. Because everybody's responsible for something on a set. And I know when I get on set, I'm responsible for my character and what he does in the scene and how he does it. That's what I'm responsible for. And if I can crack wise and improvise a little bit and do something that enhances the scene or makes it more enjoyable, I'll try it. If they like it, they'll keep it. If they don't, they'll tell me don't do it again, and I won't do it again. But that's what I'm responsible for. I'm not responsible for the other actors doing their job. I'll help them. I'm there for them. I want to be a team player and a collaborator. But if they're having a fit, I can't do anything about that.
Now, you've had a long career in Hollywood.
By Hollywood standards, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, most people don't do a percentage of what you do. When was the first time you thought, I've made it? Or when was like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel?
I remember the first bite, I guess, at the apple. The first time I got something that I thought, wow, this just happened. Jim Brewer was doing a pilot for Comedy Central, and it was a sketch show, and he was loosely basing it on Carol Burnett's show, where he was the centerpiece, right, but he had like 4 cast members, and it was me. I went through the whole audition process, like multiple auditions, callbacks, the whole thing, and I got it, and I was stoked. And it was me, Seth Morris, from the UCB, a great guy, a great comedian, very funny actor. Tony Hale, who Arrested Development, Veep, you've seen him on all movies. And then, oh God, I'm blanking on her name. It was another cast member, a female type. And she was more of an actress, and she had been in a lot of teen movies. But that was it. It was the three guys, a girl, and then Jim. And we shot the pilot in New York, and we all had a blast. It was fun, and we did some funny sketches. Jim killed it, I thought, but the pilot didn't get picked up. Just didn't go. I think it tested 50-50. You either loved him or you didn't. But that was the first time I felt like, oh, I got that. I got a gig. So I made it through the gauntlet finally. And I'd been doing improv for at the UCB for 7 years, and you don't get paid for improv; you just get stage time.
I know.
Yeah. So I never got paid a dime, but I did get what I would consider a master's in improv and sketch. Doing that time. And you make a lot of connections and you meet a lot of people. Then the next gig I got was Saturday Night Live. And so that to me, I was as green as it comes. I couldn't have been any more green. And I got that gig, and it was like drinking out of a fire hose because I was the only guy hired that year. So I'm the only new guy on the cast, and there's already a cast of 15, and everybody else they're all fighting for airtime. And here's one new straggler, another white guy on the show, and where does he fit in? So it was, but that's when I had a feeling like, oh, well, not everybody gets on Saturday Night Live. So I thought, well, maybe I can do this. I can do this. But, I didn't know how or what. You never know. You just go do, and you hope you get a gig. You hope it goes well. You hope it lasts a long time, because every gig ends and then you got to get a new gig.
Yeah, no. But isn't SNL have a strenuous audition process? Like you have to jump through the hoops to see how bad you want it.
Yeah. It is. It's scary. They only bring in about, let's call it 15 comedians, and from everywhere: Toronto, Chicago, New York, Vegas, LA. They go all around, and they bring in. And you got to be recommended, because Lauren walks around going, who should I be looking at? Who should I be looking at? And people on the cast and the writers are like, oh, you got to check out this guy, and you got to check out this guy. And so he'll kind of does that little roundup. And then you go to New York, and they don't tell you the first night you get to do, if you're a stand-up, you do your best 5 to 7 minutes. Whatever it is, your call. But if you're a stand-up, you do your best 5 to 7 minutes. If you are an improviser, you do 3 characters, original, and 3 impersonations. So 6 characters, about and you probably do a minute to a minute and a half for each character, monologue, right? And so they bring you all to New York, and then about an hour before the show, they call you. And they tell you where it is, because they don't want the New York guys stacking the crowd with all their friends and, going crazy, over their stuff, even if it's not that great. Right. Yeah. So at the last minute, they give you 1 hour. They call you 1 hour before. So I would just go sit in a coffee shop and wait so I could go outside and get a cab real quick. And so you sit there, and they call, and they say, all right, it's going to be at the Comic Strip Live on the Upper East Side, 82nd and 3rd, or 82nd and 2nd. Okay. And, you go out and you jump in the thing, and you go, and you get there, and everybody's converging, and you get a number, and you put it in the hat. They mix it up. Everybody, they draw out the first one, and they go, all right, Riggle, number 1, which is exactly what happened to me. I was the first one up. I was like, motherfucker, no. I don't want to be the first one up. The crowd's going to be cold, and I'm not doing stand-up, I'm doing characters, and this is, I need a warm crowd. I don't want to do this. Sucks. I can't believe I'm the first one. So that's the lot you got. So I had to go up first, and, Lorne Michaels, Tina Fey, Higgins, Shoemaker, all the whole head shed of SNL is sitting in the back booth, and you can see them because it's all lit up. And then the crowd is there, and it's just a regular crowd. It's a regular Thursday night crowd, and I couldn't stack it. I didn't have time to call everybody. I'm too nervous with my own shit. So I got up and I did my characters, and I don't do impersonations, so I do characterizations, and there's a whole madness to that. I think, like, you want to show them everything. You want to show them that you can do anything, right? So you try to do these weird characters and grounded characters and obnoxious, and then, your impersonations, or like me, characterizations. So I was like, oh God, I don't know who I'm going to do. So I was like, I'll do Toby Keith, because I was big. I was a lot bigger at the time, and it's a Southern accent, right? Or a hillbilly accent, right? So that's easy. And then I remember Jeremy Shockey that very week had gotten in trouble because he said something, anti-gay, or he said something about gay people that wasn't flattering. And so he was made the headlines that week because it was during training camp. It was in August. And, so I threw on a blonde wig and a Jeremy Shockey jersey, right? And now I'm Jeremy Shockey. Well, no one knows how Shockey talks. So I get to just be Shockey.
Right.
And so you create characters, and those were my characterizations or whatever. But I remember I got done, and it happened so fast. Like 7 minutes is over. You know what it's like on stage. 7 minutes, it's gone, and then you walk off stage and you're kind of shell shocked, and you think they laughed, and and then everybody out in the bar area is all the other comedians, all the other 15 comedians getting ready, so they're not going to give you any love. No. Yeah, none at all, right? They're going to be like, what happened up there? Like, what, was it that bad? Jesus Christ! So I came off and I sat down and I just ordered a beer and like drank it in 1 second, and then I'm trying to calm down. You leave, everybody gets up and does their bits. You leave, everybody leaves. Everybody go home. And then you either get the call or you don't. And so of the 15, they'll call 5. And they'll say, hey, you did a good job. We want to see you tomorrow at 30 Rock at Studio 8H. So I got the call, and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So I went to 30 Rock the next day, 8H. And they take you up. They put you in one of the dressing rooms of the cast members. So I remember I was in like Horatio Sands' dressing room or whatever, Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And you're just by yourself. You're just sitting in a room by yourself, kind of sweating it out. And they put everybody in dressing rooms. Then they come and get you. And they come, and the stage manager and a sound guy, and they put a wire on you, and you start walking from the dressing room to the stage. And as you're walking, they say, okay, listen, you got to cut it down to about 4 minutes as you're walking to the set. And you're like, oh shit. So what am I going to cut? Because it's like a song. I got this thing down like a song. It's going to be hard to cut out the middle of the song. And oh geez. And it's stressful. And I think it's built in. I think that's why they do it. Wow. To see how you handle it. Because if you're going to be on live TV, shit happens all the time on that show. I mean, the band goes too long in the second song, so they had to cut. This actually happened to me in one show. It was a scene with Jason Bateman. The band went too long, but they didn't go long enough so they could run extra commercials. So we had to do a sketch, but we had to do a condensed version of the last sketch. So as I'm walking to set, they said, hey, we had to change the last sketch. We cut a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about it. The changes are on the cards. And we're back in 4, 3, 2, and boom. Now I'm on live television. This is going live to the nation with a 7-second delay, but it's live to the nation. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God. And they're flipping the cue cards. And everybody's got different color codes, right? So the star is always in black, and everybody else has colors: red, brown, green, blue, purple, and depending on and so you always remember like, oh, I'm purple. So as they flip the cards, you're like, oh, there's a purple line, and you got to read it off the thing because that's not what it used to be, or that's not that wasn't the lead-in line isn't changed, or so it's intense. It's an intense work environment. But I walked out and they said, yeah, cut it down. And then you stand on stage where the host comes out. They have a camera on you because all the NBC executives in Burbank are watching. So now you're performing for a Lauren team, the same people that you performed for last night. They're all sitting right in front. You got a cameraman and you got the state and the floor director, and that's it. And then all the executives in Burbank that you can't see. And Lauren comes up and goes, "Very nice job. Last night it was really entertaining. Do you have any questions?" And you go, "No, I don't think so." And he goes, "Okay, great. Just, have fun with it." And then he goes and sits down. And a friend had told me, "Listen, if you get to the second part, don't sweat it. They saw you last night. They know what you're going to say. They know your jokes. They know the punchlines. They're not going to laugh. So don't sweat it when they don't laugh." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's good to know. I don't care who you are. You drop that first joke and there's nothing but silence. Your adrenaline kicks in and your heartbeat starts to go through the roof and you start speeding up and you start racing through your material instead of letting it breathe and hitting the moments and, being into your character. It's the hardest thing to do. And the people in Burbank hadn't seen your material.
Right.
So you got to remember that. And it's hard because when you're playing for a silent room. Now, I was blessed that the stage director, who was this very sweet lady, and the cameraman, God bless them, they were giving me something. They were, I could see them like laughing and I could see them, their bodies chuckling or whatever. So that calmed me down a little bit, but it still sucks to play to a silent room.
I've done that many times. Did it last night, actually.
And then you get done and they say, "Thank you very much." And you walk off. They take your wire, you get whatever your bag, and you go to the elevator and you're out on the street. And then you're sitting on the street going, "What just happened? It's over? Holy shit." And about a week later, you get a call or you don't get a call. And I was very fortunate. I got a call, and it was very presidential. "Is this Rob Riggle?" "Yes." "Please stand by for a call from Lauren Michaels." I was like, "Shit, all right." And then Lauren got on. "Yeah, Rob, hey, listen, we loved what you did. Really original, really fun. And we were wondering if you'd like to join the cast this year." "Yeah, fuck yeah, that's awesome." And that's how it happened.
Now, as a new cast member, how much leeway are you given into bringing in ideas? Like, I can imagine it's pretty brutal to get.
Yeah, it's tough. You're the new kid, and you're a potential threat because you're taking up real estate potentially of people who have been there for a year or two, and everybody's trying to just catch their stride. Everybody's trying to get a break. Everybody's trying to get their signature character on. I will say though, to the cast credit, whenever we did table reads, everybody in the cast committed to the table read. No one ever sandbagged a reading. You know what I mean? Right. So like if, cause there's like 50 sketches you got to read through to pick 10, right. And you can tell on the first page if the sketch is going anywhere or not. And then if it's a turd, you still got 5 pages left to read. Right. But no one ever like, if they're like, "Hey, Rob, I need you to, be a coach, you got to be loud or whatever." So I'd be like, and I would commit, and everybody else did it too. Like, it didn't matter if Amy Poehler committed, Parnell, every cast member committed to every sketch they read. So I never felt like anybody ever sandbagged anybody's efforts. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Which was great. The writers, that was different. They would laugh hard at their stuff and they wouldn't laugh for other stuff. Yeah, it's weird.
Like some of your impressions, like Howard Dean, Mark McGuire, did you bring those to the table or were they written for you?
They were written for me. Yeah.
Just because, you're a big guy.
Yeah.
I'm assuming someone said, "Hey, you could play Mark McGuire. Yeah. You're the only guy in this cast."
Right. You could play McGuire. I don't know why they let me do Howard Dean. Maybe because I could scream.
I could see
because that was when he screwed up and went, yeah. And did that Yahoo scream. Yeah, with the arm pump and everything. So I don't know. Yeah, and it's a tricky place. It was a tricky, and for someone as green as I was, I mean, I was green. I really was. I didn't know anything. I was from Kansas and the military, and you say what you mean and you mean what you say in those places, and that's not necessarily true in show business. And so I found out the hard way a lot of times that people would say things, and I took it to heart, and I shouldn't have. So
because they really have no competition outside of for a few years Mad TV,
right? As far as late night sketch, there's nothing.
Pressure, I would imagine.
Yeah, and at that time it was an iconic show. It hit icon status.
Oh, sure.
And so it had been around for 30 years and or 35 years, I think. Who knows? And now it's up to 45 years. So it's crazy. It's really. It is an iconic show. And the one thing that is cool, I will say, I had a very short tour on there, very short lifespan on that show.
2 seasons?
One season. But I think in the history of the show, in the 45 years of the show, there's only been like 130 something cast members. And as you walk down, because the offices are on the 17th floor, and as you walk down the 17th floor, every cast member's individual headshot is on the wall, lining that whole long hallway. And it is kind of cool. You walk down and it is the pantheon of American comedy. You go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You just see all these people that you've watched for years in movie and television. And some people you forgot, like, oh my God, I totally forgot this guy was on the show. Like Ben Stiller was on SNL for 6 months. His picture's on the wall. And I was like, Stella, when was he? Oh shit, that's right. He did have a season. And then you go down and you see people that were on the show for 3 or 4 years that you never heard from again. I mean, utterly vanished. And so, but it doesn't matter. They're all on that wall, and it is cool. You go down there and it's fun. It's a neat little fraternity to be part of. I had a short time on there. And I have zero regrets about it because it was one of the coolest things I ever got to do. And it was a dream come true. So even though I didn't get to do what I wanted to do, and I wish I would have had at least one more year to do it my way. I'm still incredibly grateful that I got the opportunity to do it.
Now, when you leave the show, is there a feeling like, oh my God, what's next? I mean,
yeah, it's terrifying. Again, that was my naivete is I thought naively, oh, we make it on this show, you're golden, now I just got to sit back and decide what projects I'm going to take on and all this stuff. And it was, that's how green I was. That's how foolish I was. I didn't understand anything until they let you go. And then all of a sudden it hits you like a slap in the face. Cause I had a wife and a child that I'm trying to provide for. And now I'm unemployed. And so I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? I got to find another job. I got to find a new gig. And so I went back to work. I ended up immediately following that. I tried to audition for some shows. I didn't get it. And then I got a deal with NBC to write a pilot. Rob Hubel and I wrote a pilot for them, not to even star in. We just wrote them a pilot, and they didn't get picked up. But we got paid a little bit, and we had to split it.
That's all that matters.
Exactly. It was a paycheck, and we were writing again, and Rob and I came up doing comedy together. We did a 2-man show, and so it was fun. I love writing with him. We have a good time. So that was the first job, and then, but yeah, it got scary there for a while. I actually, had I not gotten The Daily Show, because about a year went by before I got The Daily Show. From SNL to The Daily Show, it took about a year for me to get that job.
That's a long year.
It is a long year. It's a long, scary year. It's a long, painful year. But and we were kind of hitting the end of our funds, and it was getting desperate, and to the point where it was the height of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was at the time I was a major in the Marine Reserves, and I'd already been called back once in the beginning of the war, but I knew they needed people. So if I had not gotten The Daily Show, I was going to go back on active duty. I was going to, have to go back on active duty.
Right. And
it was that's how desperate it had become. And So I was very grateful that I got the Daily Show and I didn't have to go back on active duty.
Well, because I don't think people, your fans and just comedy voyeurs, realize you get turned down for a lot of things, even if you're famous.
Yeah, all the time.
And how do you? Because I'm going to take it to a bit of a sad place.
Sure.
But I'm actually trying to be serious for once. I've done comedy for 20 years and probably known 10 comics, actors who are no longer with us.
Yeah,
because they just couldn't. The rejection just got to them, and I know we recently lost a great friend in Brody Stevens, who, on the surface you would look at Brody and go, everyone loves him.
Yeah,
he's friends with A-list stars, you and Zach Galifianakis and Bradley Cooper, and he's audience warm-up gigs that paid very nicely, and he was in The Hangover, and he still got so sad that he couldn't bear it. How did you deal with the rejection of, like you just said, my God, I have a wife and a kid. I mean, that year and even past that, like,
I think, well, right when I got fired from SNL, I'm not gonna lie, I was crushed. I was crushed. It hurt deeply. Because it feels like a rejection of you and your comedy and everything, and then you're mad at yourself because you didn't do it the way you wanted to do it. Like, I tried to please 20 masters and I didn't please anybody.
And that's impossible to do.
It's impossible to do that. And I should have just done what got me there. But I didn't. I strayed from that because I was trying to please everybody. I wanted Tina to be happy, and I wanted Higgins to be happy, and I wanted Shoemaker to be happy, and I wanted Seth Meyers to be. I'm trying to please everybody, and it just doesn't work. But what a great lesson! I did learn that lesson. But I did. I took about a 15-minute, really good pity party when I got the news, and felt really sorry for myself. But then you got to shake that off, especially when you're a dad. You have responsibilities, so you don't have time to sit around and feel bad for yourself. And I had a great wife, that she was very supportive and very much like, hey, it's okay. On to the next thing. It's good. And that always helps to have people in your corner. But yeah, you can't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. You got to move on to the next thing. That's why I always say there's no finish line in show business. There's no time ever. If you go into a life of the arts, there's no time ever, unless you're Bob Newhart or unless you're, Don Rickles, where you've done 50 years, you have financial independence and your work is admired. That's when you've hit the finish line. Then you can retire and say, well, I've had a wonderful career and now I'm going to relax. Other than that, and that's how many people is that? That's like what, a handful of people in this?
Under 10.
Right. Under 10. So it's rare. Like, there's no finish line in show business. You just have to keep grinding. You go from one gig and you hope you get a good one and you hope you do a good job so that it lasts as long as possible. But you got to know it's going to end, and then you have to find another gig. And for some people, they find it. For some people, they don't. If you have, like, the folks on Modern Family, they're going to do 11 seasons of Modern Family, and who knows if they'll go on. Some of them will go on and do more. Some of them won't. But they, I think they probably made lifetime money on that show. So maybe they don't have to, right? With syndication and everything. So good for them, but it never ends. It never ends. You have to find a gig, and the thing is too, you got to do a good job. When you get the opportunity, it's like a final exam. When you get the opportunity, you got to capitalize. You got to make the most of that opportunity. And then if you did a good enough job, you get more opportunities. You don't get more gigs, you get more opportunities at gigs, and you still got to go land them. And then you got to capitalize again. And it's like you constantly have to keep winning to keep yourself in the game. And it's a grind, and it's exhausting, and it's fatiguing, and it wears you out emotionally, mentally, physically, in every way possible. Oh. Not to rain on anybody's parade. If you want to go into a life in the arts, it's very satisfying. You meet great people, and if it's your calling, you got to do it. You just got to do it.
But I think it helps to hear, I could talk about being bitter about certain shows I was on that might not have treated me that nicely.
Yeah.
That I helped find. But it helps that, me, I just thought this guy's just an unknown bitter comic. But someone of your level, and I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but you're successful. Even you get, let go from SNL or maybe a movie script you pitched that didn't get, and you're on top of it, and I just want people to see that even successful people get the short end of the stick.
Totally. Yeah. It's a cruel business for anybody, whether you're just coming into it or whether you've been in it for 15 years. It's a cruel business. But it's not all bad.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. I mean, you get to laugh with funny people all day and all night. And there is a community. There is a comedy community. And as sad as it was, at Brody's memorial, it was nice to see all those faces and all those people turn out because we do care about each other on some level. You hate to see anything happen. It's a small community. The comedy community is a small community.
Well, that was just amazing to see so many comics of so many different levels of, I don't know if fame's the right word, but, to see like you and Bradley Cooper and then Boone Shakalaka, the homeless open micer, all of us crying and laughing. Yeah. So even though it was a sad event, like you said, it was kind of, I don't know if cool's the right word, but
special.
It's neat to see everyone.
Absolutely. I loved looking around that room. And I'd seen faces I hadn't seen in years.
Right.
And it was nice. It was really nice.
Well, I'm cutting into your family time, so I want to end on a happy note.
Good.
I took it to, comedy's a dark place.
It is. Absolutely.
We talk about certain people, like I'm a fan of the show The White Shadow.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's one of the most innovative shows that's ever been on TV.
Yeah.
Given the time frame.
Sure. It was ahead of its time.
I'm bummed out more people don't know about it. Just because, they covered rape, abortion. Yeah. There was one episode where there was a gay player and he switched to Carver High. They went to go play pickup.
Think how ahead of this is a show in the late 70s, early 80s.
78 to 81.
Yeah. And think about how far ahead of its time those topics and the conversations they took on.
Because it was only back then, I'm dating myself, there's only 3 networks. CBS,
NBC, and ABC.
And I think that's PBS maybe?
Yeah.
But we talk about like half that cast went on to be huge directors. Salami.
Yeah.
Directed.
Well, the coach went on to be president of SAG.
Yeah, I want to call him Ken Reeves. It's Ken Howard.
Ken Howard, yeah.
But Timothy Van Patten, who was Salami, my favorite character. He did most of The Sopranos. And Kevin Hooks, who played Thorpe. He's like a big director, producer. But then the other half, they're gone.
You're absolutely right. That show doesn't get nearly... I think you just came up with a really good documentary.
Well, after The Dirt, I don't want to ruin that movie for you because I know you haven't seen it. That was, I don't know who did the fact checking on The Dirt. I think it was like Ray Charles. It's a lot of boo-boos. But that was like The White Shadow was like an ensemble all in the family. Like just the racial things they went over. But you're right, though. Like half the cast went on to be big and behind the scenes, and then the other half was like, where's Goldstein? But to take it to a happier place, to end on a happier place, I am wearing a Kiss t-shirt. This is my first concert I ever went to.
Yeah.
Hot in the Shade tour, Long Beach Arena.
That's awesome.
Crying. It's such a ridiculous concert. It was Slaughter, Winger, and Kiss. Now I know in Kansas that was a hubbub for metal.
Yeah,
like Judas Priest did a live concert video there. What was your first concert?
My first concert was Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil tour, opening for Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon.
Which I get chills you saying that because my favorite guitar player in the whole time of Ozzy's, he's had a few guitar players, was Jake Ely, who he didn't last too long. Had some issues. But yeah,
Does Ozzy go through lead guitarist like Spinal Tap goes through drummers?
Yes. I mean, well, Jake, like I know him, he stood up for himself. You know, he wrote all the music for Bark at the Moon and then his next album, The Ultimate Sin. Yeah. I can hear viewers leaving as going through Ozzy's mid-'80s category, which was when he looked like B. Arthur.
Yeah. It was a tough time. He was a little bloated at that time.
Well, you know, Randy Rhoads died.
Yeah.
And then I think Sharon didn't want him at home.
Yeah.
So we're going to get you out.
Yeah.
And then they went through 3 guitar players in 2 weeks. Brad Gillis from Night Ranger.
Really? I don't think I knew that.
He was like I said, Rob, I'm full of useless information. He was the only one who could learn Randy Rhoads. Randy Rhoads is
he's legendary. The Flying V, the polka dot Flying V was, every kid had to have one, man.
Classically trained. Yeah. He was like Beethoven of metal guitar players.
Well, still that riff in Crazy Train.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest heavy metal riffs of all time.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time. Yeah. He was like the white shadow of guitar players. Brad Gillis was the only one on a week's notice who they auditioned several guys, but he didn't fit. Like there's a concert called Speak of the Devil, which is the only video footage of Brad Gillis with Ozzy, and you just see people flipping him off because he wasn't Randy Rhoads.
Sure. Not his fault.
Yeah, it's like
not his fault.
The guy died because the pilot was trying to get back at his ex-girlfriend who was sleeping in one of the tour buses. He's like, I'm going to buzz her bus. And Randy Rhoads was like, oh, I'd love to go with you. And,
That's crazy.
But that was Jakey Lee. Then they found him and he lasted. He's like, well, I'm writing all this music. I want to be paid appropriately. And they're like, all right, we'll just get someone else. So it's a cold business being an employee of the Osbournes.
The business of show is tough.
It's cold in music, comedy. So what were some of the other concerts you saw? Because that was a central hub for every big band to play.
Yeah, I remember the 1984 tour, Van Halen. They did 2 shows, June 20th and June 21st, 1984. And I remember them well because I went to both. I remember going and see Triumph.
Oh, wow.
I saw Triumph and Mountain open for him.
Oh, wow. Leslie West and Mountain.
Yeah. And I remember... I remember... what...
Kiss? You ever see Kiss roll through town?
I never saw Kiss. I wish I would have. AC/DC came through. Def Leppard. I couldn't get tickets. I was too young also, I think. For the Pyromania. And then when Hysteria came out, I don't think they came through Kansas City. I think the closest they came was either St. Louis or Denver.
Right.
So I didn't get to see those, but I do remember when I went to some heavy metal show. It might have been the first one. It might have been Shout at the Devil, Bark at the Moon. I remember, I'm prepubescent. I'm little and I'm scared because everybody there has got long hair.
Sure.
And they look like bikers and they're kind of mean and teenagers have full mustaches and it was just scary. And I remember, I didn't drink and I didn't smoke weed or anything, but me and my buddy, we were just 7th graders, and we're terrified. So we were just nervous and scared. But back then in the 80s in Kansas, a 12-year-old could go buy smokes. So we went up to the concession. We got 2 Cokes and a pack of Winstons, and we just started smoking cigarettes. So people thought we were tough, and it was pathetic. But it was the only way we could be edgy, And we didn't even know how to do it right. It was just awful. But that's how we tried to maintain our edge.
Yeah, but you saw prime Van Halen.
We did.
Unfortunately for me, the first time I saw Van Halen was in 2012 when Kool and the Gang opened for them.
Oh my gosh.
It's a great story because David Lee Roth wanted them. It did not fit on paper. You would think, this is not going to fit.
Yeah.
But the rest of the band was like, well, we don't want them. They're not going to set us up. You talk about going into a warm or hot crowd. Yeah. And David Lee Roth was like, I'm not doing the shows unless they're our opening band. So they were like, if you want them, you're going to pay for them. And he paid for Kool and the Gang to open up that leg of the tour. And you forget how many songs Kool and the Gang,
they got
how
some
many
songs.
hits.
Yeah, they got some songs.
And just to see all these white people, I mean, let's be honest, Van Halen is a primarily white fan base.
Absolutely.
Like dancing to Celebration and Johanna. And then Van Halen comes out and, Eddie looks like the mom from Throw Mama from the Train. David Lee Roth has turned into Liberace.
The worst.
And then Eddie's son is now the bass player. But yet you still heard Michael Anthony's vocals.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
But Rob, I just want to say thank you.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me.
No, I really, I'm cutting into your family time. We're in Rob's palatial estate. The wife and kids are home. He did a podcast before this, Riggle's Picks. With can I say who it was with?
Yeah.
I don't want to, with the drummer from Steel Panther, Stixidenia. I don't know if that's his real name. But not that you need my help on social media. I actually hope you retweet this podcast several times.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you? I know you need more followers.
Yeah, it's real simple, at Rob Riggle on everything.
And at Riggle's Picks.
Yep, and at Riggle's Picks as well on Insta. So, yeah. And Twitter.
Which is a great podcast Rob does with a woman who embarrassed me on national TV.
Oh, no.
Sarah Tiana, my roast battle nemesis.
Yeah, she does it to me every week.
I was so scared to battle her. I was like, well, I can't, roast battle. It's not really my sense of humor.
That's not mine either. I'm not a roaster battler.
But you did a Comedy Central roast of
Rob Lowe. I did, and I enjoyed it, and it was fun, and it was great. But yeah, I'm like some people just do it automatically. Like I needed prep time,
But I think because of your UCB background, you'd be quite good at roast battle. And I don't suggest you do it. It's really eroded.
It's rough. It's rough.
Well, you have to. It's basically skilled bullying.
Yeah.
You have to call someone fat or a whore.
Yeah.
Other words we won't get into. But I really thank you, one, for your service to this country.
I appreciate it.
And I'm not trying to kiss your ass.
Yeah.
Chandler will tell you I'm 20 years in, I'm a horrible ass kisser. But thank you very much for doing this.
No, dude, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
This has been Inappropriate Earl on Apple Podcasts. I've been telling people we're on iTunes. iTunes is no longer a thing. No wonder I get 8 views. Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. Thank you guys very much. Rate, review, listen, subscribe, and follow Rob Riggle.
Thanks, guys.